Hello and welcome to Paper Tuesdays with Michael Dwyer and Mark Halpin. Michael, would you like to introduce our guest today?
Oh, Mark, this is one I'm very excited about. This is the host of Journeying and lecturer in the Technological University of Dublin. It's Dr. Dee Duffy. Dr. Dee, and we'll call you Dee from now. That summary on your introduction does not do you justice. You are an incredible woman, and we are going to go explore many parts of life with you, I'm sure. We were just talking before we came on air about Jiu Jitsu. And Mark was sharing about his how you got into Jiu Jitsu. So it was back in Australia, wasn't it, Mark?
Back in Australia. So I'm still a no stripe white belt, but I've been doing it for over a year, probably a year and 6 months now, because basically I'm shit in the first place anyway. So, but other than that, I've been to 3 different schools. So I started in Melbourne, and then I went and done my farm work. I actually was lucky enough to do my farm work in an area that had a Jiu Jitsu school as well. So that's what I do in my evenings. I'd spend my evenings there when I wasn't farming, and then I came home and then trained in another place here in Gorey for the 6 months since then. But obviously that's been broken up, on and off, and then I haven't done anything now in God knows how long. When was the last time? Probably January before that. Like, so yeah, I think I'm going to be forever a no stripe white belt. So.
You started back in 2016, D, is that right? Yeah.
When I started?
Yeah.
So yeah, 2015, I think it was. Yeah, so my daughter was 8 months old at the time, and my other half kept at me. He was like, you love it, you love it. At the time he was doing Wimps to Warrior, John Kavanagh's SPG Wimps to Warrior. So Patrick was doing that for the first, it was the first iteration of it, so the 6-month training, and he was just like convinced I would love it. And I personally couldn't see what the attraction was at first, because I went along. I remember going along and I was like, oh my God, this is so weird. I went along to a competition, and it was just a load of lads, like testosterone filled as far as I could see, just giving each other big bear hugs and rolling around in each other's crotches. And I was like, okay, this is very strange. But I'll trust your judgment on it that I will love it. Not sure where he was going with that. But so I started in 2015, and it was really hard, because I don't have that story of, oh yeah, I used to do judo, or I did a little bit of kickboxing, or I did. Putting on a kimono or a gi, as we know, and belt was the most alien thing to me, and jumping on mats and all the etiquette, and people all talking about like UFC and who they like, and I was like, yeah, no, I really am just here because it's supposed to be like good, like my husband says I will like it, and I did like it. And what I liked about it was, I suppose, and particularly when you're, a parent with young kids, your life becomes you have to be really rigid with your time. And like to go out, I would, like, my exercise was going to the gym, like, but doing, intense classes, 45 minutes, get in, get out, don't talk to anybody, and get back home again. Not because I'm antisocial, but maybe I am a little bit, but because I had like, so many other things I had to do. So this was a new concept of actually training, getting exercise, but in a sociable dynamic and learning. And that really tapped into me. Like, it's something, like, it's one of definitely my values in life, of continued learning. So to be able to just do that, to have all of that, still get fit, like, but still learn something, and you have that progression structure. I'm sorry it's not working out for you so far. Getting the stripe is definitely a motivator to like move on. You feel deadly when you get a stripe. You feel recognized. You feel a sense of momentum. I suppose you get that maybe if you can, I don't know, lift 20 weights or whatever, heavier weights, you get a sense of it. But this is more, I think there's something deeper about that when somebody else gives you the recognition, someone you admire, someone you look up to, your black belt coach, like that, when they hand you it and they say you're good enough, it's kind of nice to get that affirmation. So yeah, that was I'll be 5 years training probably in April now. Got my purple belt last summer, which was it was a real landmark, because when we start our gym, when we opened, it was brand new. So the 2 lads, Chris Fields and Tom King, they set up their own gym in Swords in 2015. So we were all pretty much white belts. So if anybody came through, like obviously they're not, but like all of us training were white belts starting out. So if a blue belt or a purple belt, they were like our little unicorn, you know, that we'd all look to and aspire to that belt. So now it's like we've kind of grown up together in the last 5 years, and there's like a few of us, like say for example, I got my blue belt on the same day as 3 other lads, like, and it was a real landmark occasion. Actually, Ian Gary was one of them. Ian and Alan and Donald, the 4 of us got our blue belts, and then you're just on this little journey together with all these other really cool people, you know, a few oddballs, like, you know, but we love them too. And yeah, you get to know people at a different level because you have to trust them. You know,
how often per week were you training before lockdown?
Okay, so pretty much my timetable would be, you'd aim for Monday nights and Friday nights, and Friday night was date night. So myself and my partner, like, that was our date night. We'd go training together. Wednesday evenings was ladies class, and then we'd stay on for the mixed class, and then Saturday morning. So that'd be like a good week for me, like to get that. And to do that with, you know, a young family is tough. It is a big commitment, and just goes to show that, like, you know, I probably had to change things. Like I wouldn't have as many late nights, let's say, because, you know, if you're Friday night, you're training, and you're Saturday morning training again. So it keeps you on the straight and narrow. And kids will do that too. But that was the kind of, it's not an obsessive thing. It's like, you want to learn. Like if you don't go that day, you'll miss out on whatever skill set the coaching or training or just getting the practice in. And then probably I decided, so I was blue belt 4 stripe the end of 2019. I think it was like around November. And I kind of, the landmark, as you may know, is the Euros in January each year. So that's kind of what everyone talks about all year. And I was like, oh, you know, if I don't do it now, if I don't train for this now, please God, get you know, I was hoping to train to get purple belt like in 2020. And like, so it was kind of my last chance to go and compete at blue belt. So the training had to change then. I had to increase. You're trying to get as much training, it just in much more intense training. I think that's why I hate competitions. Oh my God, it's such you learn so much about yourself, and it's not always pretty, like, you know, because you're just realizing like traits that you don't want to admit. Like I don't want to lose. Like I'd rather nearly not put myself on the line, because losing is so hard, like to have to do that. We have to get over the ego and just go, okay, well, just do your best and train. So January 2020 was the Euros, and I booked my flights on the quiet. So I was like, I'm not going to make a big deal about this, you know, though I'm not one to go shouting about like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm kind of more about, I'll go do it, and then, you know, see how it goes. But I was like, okay, so I think I told my coach then a couple of weeks later, I was like, yeah, I have flights, but you know, we'll see how the training goes over Christmas, because Christmas is a hard time to go into, to go like I'd be rolling New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve, any time I could get, like I'd be training. And another thing of what I love about Jiu Jitsu is it's like boundaries of who the people, everyone's just a training partner. So my training partner, it doesn't matter who they were, where they came from, who, you know, in life, what they're doing. So one of my like key training partners, she was 17 doing her Leaving Cert, Jess, and the two of us would like go and intensely try to just do more strategic competition rounds of understanding the point system. And that's so cool, like that it didn't matter. I was, you know, whatever age I am, and, you know, a mammy, and she's like doing her Leaving Cert and all the stresses. So we have 2 different lives, but on the mats, we're just like focused on one thing together. And it's a lovely, I think it's brilliant for that idea of what's missing, I suppose, today in life, of tribalism, or that sense of community and bringing people together on a, you know, it's just lovely. It's real. It builds up a lovely sense of community. So yeah, so that's how I train for that. And I was focused on the the competition, but I was still kind of in denial, I think, right up to going to the Euros. Like I remember the day before or 2 days before, I realized I'd screwed up on my hotel booking. I booked for the next week, and it's in Lisbon. It's the busiest week in Lisbon. So I was like, that's it. That's a sign. I'm not supposed to go. I can't keep throwing more money at this. Like, to book another hotel for another 3 nights. I was like, and on another level, it was me looking for a way out. She was looking for an excuse not to go, because even though I'd done all the training, you still don't feel, well, for me, I never feel ready enough, and because I couldn't train as much as I would like to train. How could I? Like, I've so many, I have a full-time job, I've got a family, I've got, there's so many things going on. I'm not a professional athlete. And there I was trying to convince myself I was for about 8 weeks.
I'd say the person who you beat 7-0 in the semi-final, I'd say they'd love to hear, oh yeah, she didn't want to be there at all. I'd say they just, they're loving this now as they're tuning into Paper Tuesdays.
Yeah. It's you want to be there, but it's terrifying.
Right.
It is. It's so intimidating. It's not like something I grew up with. Maybe some people who've maybe grown up around this environment, love competitions, grown up. I didn't experience that growing up. Like, I played basketball, but it was a team sport. This is me. I'm either going to perform or something could go terribly wrong. I'll be, really embarrassed. But the thing is, when you do mess up, of course I've lost lots of matches, and you learn so much more. And it's trying to remind yourself, you learn more from losing than you do from winning. Yeah, you get a high from winning and you feel deadly, but you learn more intensely from the losing, because you go and you'll dissect what went wrong, and not went wrong, but what did they know that I didn't know? How did I get into that position? If I get in that position again, what can I learn to get out of it? And yeah, so it's a hard pill to swallow when you lose, but it's, when you step back from it and the ego steps away, then you can just learn, move on.
Okay. So that's how you accept the silver medal. Like, it's a great high point, but knowing that you're runner up, that's you're the one that has learned the most from that today. For the Euros now, I don't that was a pure win for me. It didn't matter what color. To be standing on the podium was a win for me. Yeah. But how many matches? 1, 2, 3 matches, and so everything was going really well for me except for my knee went. So I knew going into my final match that I shouldn't probably be stepping on the mat. My knee was gone. So it's so weird, it's only a couple of minutes, but you're thinking so intensely and your mind's racing, okay, what's the right thing to do? And, even as it was starting, there was one voice going, just stop. And I was like, how can I say no to a chance to win? So I had to try. And I actually took her down, which was great. I got her down, but I wasn't able to scramble fast enough because my knee couldn't move. So I could see it even in the playback. So I fair play, I gave myself a chance. I tried. I seen my knee couldn't actually follow through, and it was fine. That was grand. I think she got an arm bar or something in the end, and I'm okay with that. I was delighted with how it all went. Yeah. I love the dynamic there that you describe, because you've written as well about how, this big intimidating arena, and you're going down on the mats, but yet you have that moment where you have to make a decision totally by yourself in the moment, where even saying, no, I'm going to give it a go now in this final. Those moments they remind me of sporting autobiographies where, the person is just whacked the head off someone and now they have to deal with the referee or something because no one else knows what's actually going on there. But I know it's totally different, but it's, it's that idea, the gladiator, the ring or something. Does that strike a chord with you or?
Yeah. I mean, it's probably as many intense moments in your life. It's down to you to decide, or you have to think. I don't know why, for some reason, labor is coming into mind as well. Of, it's you and the pain. You have to decide how to cope with this or how to move on. So yeah, and I think I think a lot of people would say in very intense moments, your brain just kicks into, the intensity of the moment heightens your brain, your sensitivities, your thinking process. is just in a higher drive in those critical moments.
Yeah.
Which is so interesting. Like sport is just, I have to say, like that 8-9 week period of going through that, like of training for a competition and writing down what you're experiencing, I learned so much more about myself than, you know, years of just existing. You know, I think sport is so important for people to challenge themselves, whether it's sport, but sport just seems to bring on that extra kind of intensity and challenge, and almost that tribal, particularly in the likes of a jiu-jitsu match where it's an opponent, like, and it is physical. It's just really interesting. I think you just get to deeper levels of understanding of yourself.
Ooh, yeah. Dee, you've written many articles, obviously, given that your background in academia, but you mentioned earlier about tribalism, and I can't help, when you mentioned about that, I couldn't help but be reminded of your final line that just, it left me thinking anyway after it. You know, as a country, how we've consumed our way to liberty, and now can we discuss and think about who we are now? And this angle linked to meaning and Foucault's, I'm probably not pronouncing his name right, power in society, and how you look at sport, and I suppose with specifically here the GAA, as a positive structure where there's discipline involved. Just to have that distillation of what sport can mean in the 21st century, but I suppose more than that, people playing sport, you know, a participation, that's a real I'm lost for words, even, because you've encapsulated something that I just, even to think about the two parts there, to consume our way to liberty and now to see where we go from here. What lies behind that? Or
I need to go back and read my article. No. I do need to see the context.
Steve, sorry, I'm probably putting you on the spot here, but like, as a society, you mentioned how we have we got our independence. We've thrown off the shackles of, you know, limited thinking or limited mindsets through maybe religion, or, you know, the shackles of the past. We've overcome them now, but now it's a time for us as a country to see, well, actually, who are we? Are we just going to be people that consume what comes from America? Are we just going to, you know, what does it mean now to be in a nation? What does it mean to be part of the GAA? It's no longer a parish body that's an extension of, I'm talking on a whim here, but like, it's no longer just a simple extension of a parish, but now the GAA is still relevant and it's still a societal force, but what is behind that society?
Yeah. So, like, you know, we've made decisions recently we were rejecting the power structures that were in place because they abused the power that they had. So, like, when Dev was designing our country in 1921 of who we are, or deciding what we are and putting in place that it's, well, we are a religious Catholic society, kind of a law-abiding or a patriarchal society. And we've seen how that played out and didn't work out very well. And that's like, and it's great that we are resisting and we are making changes, because who wants to be under the thumb of a patriarchal society or a dominant power, be it the religion? Because I think, you know, yeah, we're all pointing the fingers maybe at the church, but like, it is a structure and it's a power structure. And I think, you know, whatever we bring in next or wherever we turn to, I think what the problem or what the issue is power. What are we going to do with that power? So whoever you're going to put your, you know, is consumption and consumerism the next God, or is it God at the moment? Is it the most relevant thing in people's lives right now? And is that a good thing? Has that been a good thing for society? Yes, it's great that we have freedom to consume and, you know, hopefully some, you know, disposable income to consume, but what do you want from it? Like, what is it getting you? What is it giving you? And I do think at the moment, consumption probably is a lot of particularly younger people's God. It's like, if you think about how young people organize their time and even their leisure time, it's a lot of it around going to the shopping malls, going to consume something, whether it's entertainment or, you know, to be amused. or even we consume social media, and so social media and technology is now possibly our current gods. And is that who we want to put our faith in? And look where that's getting us. So, so I don't think, when whatever structures come into play, they don't mean to abuse power. But I think what we all need is self-awareness and awareness of what power is and how power plays out, and how if you give too much power to one entity, then if it's human nature, I don't know what technology, but human nature is to take power and use it for your own means most often. But if we're not aware, I think it comes back a lot to, and I'm very interested in building emotional intelligence and self-awareness. And if we can build our awareness that, so if my phone, like, okay, so this phone, I can have, I can sit all day on this if I want to be entertained by it, but is it right? Is it allowing my brain to function in a healthy way in society? Am I actually existing in a meaningful way in society? And I need to check that. I think with the Social Dilemma movie at the moment, and Tristan Harris, and raising awareness, saying, hello, I've been there. We are designing this to distract you from your life. We are trying to get your attention because it makes us a lot of money to get your attention. So, okay, I need to know that information and go, that's nice. Technology is brilliant. It's served us so well, and particularly in the pandemic, but I need to be aware that that can't be my God. I need to have other meanings in life. And be that nature, be that your family, be that interactions with other physical people, because that's a very different relationship than, but I'm sure I was on WhatsApp to my mates all day, but like the connection's the same. And we're seeing that with the pandemic, that even though, like, and particularly in the university kind of dynamic, where students like are surprising themselves, like we just want to be back in college. It's because they want the human interconnection, not that they necessarily want to listen to us talking. And that's, we can get them information through technology now, and I think that's going to be revolutionary. But I think what we need to see is it's the human interaction, connection, teamwork, group work that is what humans need, thrive on, what we can build new knowledge and information and ideas and creativity through that coming together. Not to live a distracted surface level life on whatever Google decides to send us and whatever other algorithm decides to send us into our lives.
Yeah. The belief in consumerism is hollow as well, isn't it? Like, it's not like, whatever, as bad as the church or however abused that was, it's not the same. You're believing in something sort of higher rather than something you can attain. I can't buy God, like, but it's something more than me that I believe in. It's not something that I can take.
Totally. And whatever your God is, I'd see it as air, nature. It's something higher than me. I did not make me. There's so much I have no power over in this world, and I have to accept and give myself up to that higher power. Totally. Like, and with consumerism, can I have, can I take, can I own, this kind of wanting to acquire, which will never fulfill us. And yet we keep dipping back into going, if I could just have this, if I could just have that, it might make my life better. It never makes life better.
Nature is exactly what brings that as well. Like, I done it today. I went down to the beach and I left my phone in the car, and I spent 45 minutes looking out at the sea and the seagulls, and I didn't get bored. It's so strange, and you think you would. Like, I was just sitting there by myself looking at the same thing for 45 minutes and I didn't get bored. It was so strange. But like, I think young people don't get that. Like, I know we're young or whatever, but like teenagers who are constantly plugged in and who have been plugged in since they were 12 years old or whatever, don't get that, and they don't go out and try it because why would I do that? That's stupid, or that's boring, or that's wasting my time. I could be doing this, or I could be making a Facebook page to build a business, or whatever way you want to phrase it to yourself. But if you can just step back every once in a while and go back to what is simple, and then you'll see what's important from there, I found.
Absolutely. And if anything, the gift from this current situation is the time to go and sit still. We have a bit more time. It's, again, we need to remind ourselves that we do have choice of how we spend this time. It's so hard looking into maybe another 9 weeks of lockdown. Of course, our mind can go one way, but what we can control is go, okay, what can I do with this time that I have? And say for me, like, what's been an absolute, like, total silver lining in what's been happening is the idea, when you mentioned the sea, is that connection with nature. I didn't even know there was a whole community of people going sea swimming in my community, because when they were sea swimming, I was on a train at the same time, you know, squashed up with other commuters on the way into the city centre, like a hamster on a wheel, of this kind of routine of fire the kids one place, get, you know, find somebody to mind them, you know, obviously at childcare in place, but do you know what I mean? You're racing to catch the train, you're racing to get to work, you're in there intensely, you come back again. It's just, and I was at a point even before the you know, global pandemic. I was very shocked about this was life. This was actually how we were choosing, but I didn't feel like I was choosing this life, but I was on this hamster wheel of, you know, there is no proper childcare in place. There is no structures in place to think about, well, do we need to live this life? Do we need to work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5? And 9 to 5 is a joke. Most people know that 9 to 5, to do 9 to 5 is pretty much 7 to 6, like really, because you're trying to maybe commute. Very few people actually finish at 5. Now that's the traditional work. I know everybody has like different iterations of that, but with your traditional structure of 2 parents trying to keep a roof over a house, that's what you have to do, like, because childcare for each child is the cost of a mortgage on top of a mortgage. So it just was like, this isn't like, okay, so we're encouraged to have a family, but yet not rear them, because I have to keep a roof over their head or I'll be judged. So how will I put a roof over their head, you know, without going out to work? And then we've all these societal issues with children, like not having the support systems they need because their family's off earning money to keep them in childcare. It was just this vicious circle and cycle. It was just bizarre anyway. And so I really hope that this again will help us to reset in a positive way. But like that, it's given me that time in the morning so we've got communities here, like in where I live locally, and a couple of other friends, and that I can go and do something for myself at 7 o'clock in the morning and still come back and kick off the day. And that, oh my God, the power, as you said, of just the ocean. I know not everyone has the luxury of living by the ocean, but if you do, like I always felt like I've always lived on the coast, and I get a bit claustrophobic if I'm in the Midlands, you know, because I need the sea close by to me. And there's so much, I don't know, it's healing properties. I mean, there is lots of evidence to say there's healing properties in the water, but it's also just having a laugh, like, you know, you with a couple of people, because if it wasn't a group of people, and that's another thing, I've made lovely connections with really interesting sound people over the last year. And if like, you know, if it was just me, like the accountability of going down to the sea every day, I wouldn't probably go, because the motivation would probably wear off. But the fact that, okay, I'm accountable, I said to someone I'm going, and then the fact that I know we're going to have a bit of a laugh afterwards, like, or in the sea, it's just going, you know, laughing at the bizarreness of it all. Like the sun's not even up and here we are in the freezing cold, the snow on the ground. Like, it's just funny, like, you know, but it's brilliant and it's amazing. And you feel good for challenging yourself.
So when you're in the water, out of interest now, tell us, how long do you spend in the water? How do you feel in the water? Because Mark, when you're in the water, you don't really, you've a fear of the things that might be underfoot, don't you?
Oh, I'm weird phobia. Seals actually is my big phobia. For some reason, I hate the thought of a seal being nearby. It's happened a few times where they're nearby, and I know they're not dangerous. It's just I don't want it near me, or I don't want it to touch me. It's strange.
I can totally relate.
Yeah.
That's
a big one.
Oh yeah, no, the idea, and it's so funny, isn't it? It's like, you know, what? There's sea creatures in the sea? Like, you know, how very dare they interrupt my morning swim? But yeah, no. So how long do I spend in there? So we started swimming last June. I think June was the first time we went in. One of the girls just said it for, like, you know, do you want to go down? I was like, yeah, I'll give it a go. Like, and we kind of, I think at the start, we laugh now thinking, oh my God, we thought we were deadly going in when the sun was shining. And we wondered, would we keep it up? I remember they were all like, talking, okay, we keep going in September. And I'm like, yeah, we'll see. Because I was also thinking about kids back to school. In my life, they didn't have kids. And I was like, God, like, will I be able to do that? But we have stayed, and we would stay in probably Like in the summertime, 20 minutes, half, there was one day we'd spent about nearly half an hour because it was just great fun. The waves were brilliant. And we came out and we were like, okay, does anyone else feel a bit weird? Like we were feeling like dizzy and this kind of, it wasn't good. So we were like, okay, it was funny, but it was like, okay, our body is telling us that it's shutting down here a little bit. So from there on in, we kind of keep an eye on the watch. So now, obviously, like that was summertime. During the winter time, you have to be so careful. So again, like, and we have to remind ourselves, I suppose I swim with 2 other jiu-jitsu, players, jiu-jitsu people were prone to being kind of, tough and thinking that we can do this, but we're like, no, actually our body will shut down and there just won't be any crack like if we have to be rescued out in the water. So I think there's something about whatever the water temperature is. So say if the water temperature is 5 degrees, you shouldn't stay in longer than 5 minutes. So a minute for every degree, something like that. Yeah.
Right.
I think it's something along those lines.
Yeah. So
we try to stick by the rules.
Yeah. You since we're on kind of the subject of lockdown, you in one of your solo pods on Journey In, which we might as well plug as we're halfway through here, you mentioned the dynamic of the subservient, maybe I'm not still pronouncing that right, the female voice of Alexa, and I was blown away. I never even thought of it, and you went to research, you tried to see, is there any other way to put a male voice on it, and it seems like it's only coming with updates. That's fascinating.
Yeah. It wasn't designed. And that points to a huge problem that I suppose that we're recognizing more and more of not having diversity at the table, whatever that diversity might look like, whether it's gender or whether it's culture. The fact that somebody, I would imagine a few people sat at the table and went through iterations of that product design and never thought about the fact that why is it just a female voice that we have designed this for? Why would we not give options? People like options. Wouldn't it be interesting to have different voices, different tones of voices, different genders? Wow, it's only one other like sex. There's only 2. Like, so, how hard would it be? I know it might have been time consuming. I did read that they said it takes a long time to get her to train. They could do a bit longer because I tell you what, she still isn't listening to me. It's bizarre. Like, and I didn't know Alexa was coming into my home. Alexa just arrived in my home. I was promised this would revolutionize our lives. And I'm like, one of the things my other half did was you can connect Alexa up to the lights. So went and bought all the light bulbs that connects. I was like, for real, like you pass the light bulb going in and out of the kitchen. This isn't helping. There's so many other things that could help my life or, make it easier. But having somebody who 50-50 will turn it off or on for me. Like sometimes she listened to me, sometimes she wouldn't. I said, I passed the bloody light switch to go out the door. So this was the most bizarre. It's a total gadget. I can see I'm having, she plays music for me sometimes she will. So I don't know. I don't get it, but it was irrational. Like it felt like so the 2 kids and Patrick were like delighted and having great fun shouting at this. And I was like, I felt like I'm on the outside of my family. I was like, why are they all interested in this thing? But then I realized that what it was, them shouting at her and demanding her to do things. I was like, no, that's not washing with me. I don't like this tone. I wouldn't have them shout at another human being. And I know she's technology, but I think there's a danger in that idea of letting young kids' minds even absorb that idea of shouting commands at somebody and not putting in manners. So that's our new rule. They have to use manners when they ask her to do things. So they have to say, Alexa, please turn on the light, or Alexa, please. Yeah. But so how long she survived? She's here about 2 weeks.
Right.
When the novelty wears off, I might just tuck her away somewhere and we might learn to turn this light switch on and off ourselves.
Yeah, it was a gas story though, to think of how, I do like how you know, but the persona of, you know, checking the weather with the sun, you know, that had a dynamic, like that this was an extra someone standing up in your child's corner. And then the other thing of, you know, the thing of the light, that the light was now a thing, you know, like it was.
Oh, yeah. Causing problems. Like, you know, bursting out crying, going, I don't have a red light in my kitchen anymore. It's like 24 hours ago, we never even imagined having a red light in the kitchen. And now it's a problem at the table. Oh my God, it's like a brothel place was with the red light going on. It's just, but it was amazing. It's so interesting. Kids are just sponges. It was amazing how quickly the kids adapted to this source of information. Like I still, maybe it's because I'm resistant, but they will still go like out and check what's the weather going to be like. So my girl last week, she got it into her head. She was going organizing a Valentine's party. She's 5. She's having parties at the moment, but I let her go through the whole process because it entertained her of writing invitations and planning out this. And, you know, I was finally breaking it to her that like, it's going to be lashing rain and we can't really all come together. And because it started getting closer to the time, I was like, what do you envision this party looking like? Because she was going all out with the party. And again, running straight into the kitchen, you know, Alexa, will it be raining tomorrow? And coming back to me with the fingers up, thumbs up, like, oh no, she's thumbs down, but she goes, oh, hang on, I'll go and ask her what will it be like in the afternoon, you know, so maybe, God, you know, is it, and of course then there's, my kids are still young, but I would imagine if you had kids like coming up in 11, 12, the information that Alexa could give a child, it's the same way with the internet. It's like, do you want kids to have access to that information? Do you know, like little questions that we can get answered, like at the top, like, you know, when kids start asking difficult questions or, you know, deep questions or questions about life, it's like you want to be able to be in that conversation, not that they're off having a conversation with Alexa or online.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because how a 12-year-old might process, you know, what is life or, you know, death or all big questions. It's like,
you don't want to learn it off Reddit. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Makes me wonder though, like
crazy person, like with their random comments about what's the meaning of life. It's like, you know, who's educating your children?
Live off a diet of sand.
You should live off a diet of sand.
Live off a diet of sand.
A diet of sand. Oh yeah. Exactly. You know, you don't know, and where is the source of information? And that's like another huge issue of media literacy and people training themselves, young people, and all of us having to understand that where is the source of the information coming from?
Yeah.
And like, which is getting even more difficult to get credible, authentic information if you can't even trust like the likes of the President of the United States and what the information they're sharing with you. If that's not true, like you have to be so much more discerning about where you get your information from and who you can trust with information. Is it credible?
This is a nice little segue into marketing and your history working in marketing.
Buy it.
I have to say though, given your expertise in marketing, I actually stumbled across you through an Instagram ad. So that's proof that, you know, you work well with, yeah.
I was dabbling.
But with the whole marketing, like, I know it's your work history, but like what, where do you think, there's obviously an importance even to market ethically.
Yeah, tongue twister.
But like, like I just see something in how. Oh, sorry. Now I have it here somewhere. Like your approach, your journey as a whole, even that you found this approach to meaning after first looking at marketing. So, what have you learned from like your work experience in marketing, then studying sociology and in turn philosophy maybe, and that now lecturing business and fashion, but do you still lecture in marketing? Like, is it still at the forefront of your mind?
Yeah. Look, it's marketing is, and when you think about it this way, it's about, well, if you want to add, like, have you something that'll add value to somebody else's life? If you have something that'll add value, a service or product that'll add value to someone's life, I think you can get behind that. Obviously, there's a lot of products out there that are superfluous, nobody needs them. And I think that comes down to educating the consumer about how much do you need, like, you know, so there can be a plethora of choice is good, and, you know, having options, but it's about then the consumer needing to be also educated in terms of going, do I need another pair? Just because somebody shouts at me that these are really nice shoes, do I have 50 other pairs of shoes? Can I walk to A from B? I'm very practical actually about, like, it's funny, I lecture in the fashion arena as well, but like even you can still have an industry, but it doesn't have to be corrupt. It doesn't have to be that it's forcing things on you that you didn't need in the first place. Like, you're not really going to buy anything that you totally didn't need, or, you know, you need to touch into, I suppose, on some level that it adds value to your life. Like, do we need Alexa? No. But obviously, like, somebody thought that would add value to people's lives, and it possibly does. Like, say, if you were disabled, Alexa's probably a very useful tool in the house, because it'll make your life a bit easier. So I do believe, and I'm very interested in, like, entrepreneurship and business and, like, new design and innovation and products and services. What I have an issue with is overconsumption. Overconsumption because of what it causes to the environment, but also the realization that, you know, going shopping, what does that mean? Like, buying things, what are you looking for? You know, and sometimes it's nice, it's beautiful to walk around beautiful spaces and admire, like, maybe displays and the atmosphere and, you know, the stores, but it's problematic if that's what your idea of a hobby is. Like, I have asked students, you know, because we do a lot of kind of, maybe when first years are starting, and you'd ask them to do those inductions and to get to know each other, and the amount of, like, I'd say, oh, what do you like to do? And some people were, you know, can be stopped in their tracks going, I don't know. Like, one person said she liked to watch her boyfriend play football. I was like, no, that is not you. That is not your hobby. That is, like, but anyway, but it's, a lot of them would say, I like to go shopping. And you're just like, okay, unpack that. What is that? What are you searching for? But really, it's probably community, camaraderie, friendship, cup of coffee, looking for atmosphere, looking to feel part of something. Do I need to go and do a haul in a fast fashion retail outlet? No, I don't need to. And so I do feel, and there's, you know, hopefully going to be a seismic shift and change, probably pushed with a little bit of policy as well, to get more clever about design. I have a huge issue with things being designed without the end in mind. And I don't know if you're familiar with the circular economy, but there's a lot of a shift towards, like, products needing to think about their end use. So a brand like Patagonia is a fantastic example of a brand that they design it well. They want the product to last. You will pay more for it at the offset, but you will be wearing it in 5 to 10 to 15, 20 years time. If you're not, they can repair it for you if the zip's broken. They will mend it. They give opportunities for you to give that, like, so say, for example, if you're like, okay, I'm going to let this coat go now, you know, so it's had all its iterations. You can bring it and they will resell it in the same space. So they're really pushing the boundaries of what retail looks like for the future. And I think a lot of even the likes of Selfridges in the UK, which is a luxury brand, are starting to dabble in the resale market and allowing resale to come into the traditional store space. And that's very important for our psyche, because there's a lot of people would say, oh, I wouldn't wear secondhand clothes. But where's it going to go? Like, there is nowhere else for our crap to go that doesn't, like, that's poorly made. Like, so it shouldn't be allowed that a piece of clothing is designed where it falls apart after 3 or 4 washes, or that it's impractical in the first place and not really fit for purpose. That should not be allowed. And I think there's, you're smiling there. I'm like,
because I'm thinking about our merch, and I'm thinking, okay, we better make sure that this does not
unravel in the first wash.
Yeah.
But it's just about that awareness. Oh, actually, I see your hat. Yeah, it's very nice.
Oh,
Yeah, a nice little dabble into it. But like that, you know, that's nice. It's good, but it would be, probably would be a nice thing to look at. How is this made? And maybe next time we'll have a look more at the supply chain of how this was made, because while it would add value to our crew, our patrons, or whoever enjoys, like, you know, the brand Paper Tuesdays and enjoys it, and that would give value to their lives, but it would even be better if it was sustainable as well and ethically made, you know.
To be honest, I left the fashion bit I just kind of left it outside there, a typical man thing. But then I was looking this morning, and I read one or two of your articles and on the fashion, and on the fashion, you can tell how up I am with me Louis Vuittons. But actually, my girlfriend is very into it anyway. But like, I was going to say, like, sustainability, does that mean fashion is going to have to pivot a little? But then I realized after reading on your article, no, this is more serious. This has to be the revolution, as you mentioned. And I suppose, whatever, look, waste, I understand where you come, like, as in, that's very valid, but I think the bigger issue there was, and I never really thought of it, and I suppose it has been flouted a good bit, the idea that slavery could lie behind some of the products.
It does. Modern day slavery is still alive and well, and the problem is it's out of sight and out of mind, because it's them over there.
Yeah,
we can't see it. But you cannot buy a garment, you like, for €5 and think that nobody has been mistreated in the production of this garment. And just because they're over there and they can live on less than €1 a day, they can't really, not to the standards that you're living at. So do you need that t-shirt, or consumers, will you vote with your pocket and say, sorry, I'm going to put that t-shirt back, that's going to unravel and not really stand the test of time anyway, and I'm going to maybe look for and seek out brands that care about their supply chain and want to ensure that, because, and I do think it's so important that Karl Marx talks about this, it's called commodity fetishism, and he warned of the danger of separating production from consumption. If we can't see how something's produced, or where it was produced, or who produced it, it's easier to kind of turn a blind eye to what's happening. But if you knew that your nephew down the road who's 12 had to work for 12 hours to make that t-shirt, and you knew that their family was on, you know, the brink of poverty, would you still need that t-shirt?
Yeah.
Because they look like you, they have names like you, and so you respect what you know more, and you think about it more. Whereas we can tell ourselves that it's fine, because sure, we don't really know what's happening in those, like, Middle Eastern countries or Bangladesh, or have we been there? Have you been to Bangladesh? Or, you know, all these production companies where we go to get cheap labor, so that we can wear crap that. And I think when you know, if I was standing in front of you and you said that, or I was standing in front of any consumer about to buy, there would be very few that would still go, oh, yeah, I will actually, yeah, I'm going to buy 2 of them. You know, we're not like that. You know, we're not bad people, but it's easy to get caught up in I want to wear something new tonight because everybody's going to see me, and, you know, I'm going to be on Instagram and I can't wear the same dress I had like last week. And then we realize, well, that's super, we're living on this surface level in life in Western society, and it's all nonsense. It's like, you know, just strip it all back. It's like the Truman Show. Have you seen the Truman Show, Jim Carrey? And it's like this fake life, and it's almost like that's what we're living, this fake life that really, what does it matter? Who cares what I'm wearing right now? Like, okay, yeah, to an extent, but we can find other ways of showing up on Instagram, like sharing clothes with friends, like swapping, like that resale, using Depop and second-hand sales. There's other ways. So it's just about making those other ways more accessible and easier, so that it's not hassle, because like we don't want hassle in our life. So you might like, and I know, like, to think, oh God, I'm going to have to like take photos of this and sell it and put it in the post and send it to someone else. And, you know, it might seem a lot of hassle to get involved in the resale market. But if we can make that process more seamless and easier and more just the norm, which it has to be, we have no choice. Like there is literally like the whole industry is just in crisis, and it's like we're waiting for it to blow up in our face before we finally accept that there's a problem.
Yeah, I don't know, but like, say the example of when it comes to food, you fair trade, and they're side by side with other products. Like, can that model be applied to fashion? Maybe it already is. Like, as you mentioned there about the resale, like, do we have to look at other ways?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was only chatting, actually, I have a podcast coming out on Monday with plug Katrina Flynn. So she's a colleague of mine. We have the great chat about this, and certainly we can learn a lot from the slow food movement and move into a slow fashion movement. And there is movement towards it. But like that, what you're talking about there, the slow food kind of movement, whereby we buy locally and we know the produce and we know we got it from Farmer Mick down the road, and you know that you're supporting their business. Like, so if we can bring production back closer to home in some ways. Now there's problematics with that, because you obviously you don't want to take the industry away from like Middle Eastern countries or Bangladesh, but they still want the business, they want to do business with us, but they just want a more humane way of life, and not putting these excessive demands on the bottom line, basically. So Western companies have the power to negotiate because they can do big orders, so they can push down the price, and sure, then like somebody has to pay the price along the way. So it's usually the subordinate or the weaker that get pressed out. So that could be your child labor, females, women, primarily, like, that are getting abused in that process and system.
That's Dee, what I like about your approach is that, like, to be honest, whenever I've thought about or engaged with sociology, it's gone so far with the whole power thing and society. Would you bring it a step further and you say, no, look, you know, it's about bringing the good out of people as well. You know, it doesn't have to be all negative and bad, and, you know, the power in society and these hierarchical bodies, and it's all pressing down. You know, the alternatives for everyday human life are very real and very necessary as well. And like, I think you have an acute awareness of that, and that's so important.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because we can talk about systems and get very upset about systems and structures, but it's too abstract. Like, at the end of the day, we are the people in these structures. So there is hope if we can just build our own self-awareness and educate ourselves and learn about what's happening in the world and be present in the world, maybe, that we could maybe realize. And then with power structures, it's just going to shift again. Like, you know, until we are aware of it. So say, for example, you know, there's huge issues at the moment with women in leadership and not having places at the table, in terms of, like, say, councillors in your local councils and TDs. Like, if you look at the representation of women versus men, there's like 20%, I think, women in council positions. Okay, so what's the alternative? Like, what we're trying to get to is a 50-50, which would be nice. But I think we have to understand the why it's nice, you know, because it's not a them against us. Like, it's not that women don't like men and men don't like women, but it's about power. It's about, you know, will I give up my power to give you a seat? Probably not. But if it has to be 50-50, then we might, like, sit together. But then what I mean is, will it flip the other side then? What if, will women want more power than men? And maybe, you know, would women start playing out the same kind of power dynamic if we just, so it can't be about, we just want what you have. We don't want to shift the table over and go, okay, we want to bully and be, you know, a matriarchal society, which, you know, puts men down and doesn't give them equal opportunities. What would that obtain for society as a whole? It wouldn't solve anything either. So I think just if we're aware of our own, the seduction of power, and how we might be playing out these power, all of us, like you and me, in certain dynamics, we are in the more powerful position in our lives, certain relationships, certain dynamics. And what do we do with that power? Do we abuse it? Maybe sometimes we do, like, you know, so we're all at play of being guilty of maybe abusing power. And again, it's back to awareness of, like, okay, why am I doing this? Why am I abusing power? And I think if we could get that level of just awareness, it might change us repeating patterns.
Yeah, your no-nonsense approach means that I think anyway, that your no-nonsense approach means that you can listen to and admire the likes of David Goggins and Jocko Willink for sources of motivation, like to be able to say, maybe now this is maybe this is wrong or whatever, but like that as a woman, like you could say, oh no, what they're saying makes sense. I can, you know, take what they're saying as a role model as such, and a source of motivation to go further. What do you think is that, like we've discussed there about like genders, and like, is it to do with like why does Goggins and Willink appeal to you, or what do you think can tally with you there?
I admire it up to the point, but I do like, so you know, if you're familiar with them, they're 4 a.m. like, let's do this kind of up at 4:30 a.m. and like, you know, so I admire it to a point, and then I put on another lens and go, you're not talking to the female population, or you're not talking to the female population who have children, because you cannot choose to get up at 4:30 a.m. and also raise children, because the kids are going to be up maybe a few times a night. So they're talking to a particular cohort. They're probably talking to you guys, you know, like they're probably talking, but I admire what they're doing. I love that kind of story. It's funny, like, and people probably think I'm a contradiction, because I really admire what Jordan Peterson says. I like share, you know, Jordan Peterson, some of his clips and stuff with students, because I like what he's saying. I have an empathy towards how young men are existing in society and the struggles that they're facing. And then another person would say, oh my God, Dee's a roaring feminist. Like, you know, the assumption might be that she would despise Jordan Peterson, but I don't. Like, I would like equality for everyone, you know, and I've empathy. I have a young son. Why would I want a world that isn't going to be a sound world for him, and him to be sound in that world?
Yeah.
Just as for my daughter, I don't want her to be, you know, not having opportunities at the table to step into leadership if she wants to.
Absolutely.
So, you know, like, I don't have to be on either camp. And it's dangerous to have either camp. And I think once we can still kind of have conversations and see things from, as much as I can, from a male perspective, like I've never had that experience. So obviously I can't, you know, I don't know what it's like to be a young man in 2021, but I can listen and I can try to understand, and as well as for a woman. And I think we all have that issue, where we all have our blind spots of what's it like to be somebody else in a different scenario. So it's just about literally trying to be sound, just trying to be and keep ourselves aware.
A lack of ideology throughout your conversation.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
You're a very rational thinker, and that's what I think more people could do with that viewpoint, rather than associating with the group that believes in this and like, this is exactly it. Like, it would be easy for us to say, just go right behind the Jordan Peterson sort of thing of like that whole spiel. But what you mentioned, you called Karl Marx and mentioned that you like Jordan Peterson in the same conversation, which is fairly telling. Like,
but look, like, you can take bits, you know, you can take, and all you can do is take these information and apply it to your own life and go, does that correspond to my experience and my life? Or can I see how that would be relevant to X, Y, or Z? And if you just try to kind of look at things through those lenses, not going, well, I'm a feminist and I see a lot of feminists don't like Jordan Peterson, so I don't like Jordan Peterson. Well, where's my critical thinking in that whole dynamic there? I have to think critically for myself and see, do I experience this to be true?
Yeah, Jordan Peterson doesn't like vanilla ice cream, so I don't like vanilla ice cream.
Yeah. Like, follow blindly. Like, everybody's going to have their, you know, there's bits that you'll like of them. They might say things you don't like. Doesn't mean I'm suddenly going to not get behind Jordan Peterson. I do think, and you know, he is opening up a whole conversation to a cohort of men to get them thinking, like, you know, and hopefully there might be a female Jordan Peterson, like, to get, I think just all young people to get thinking critically for themselves will, you know, save the next generation, to not become just absolute dupes to whatever the phone tells them.
Yeah.
Like, if that's your source of information, whatever your social media thread tells you, that's dangerous. That's a dangerous headspace to be in.
Yeah. Are you under time pressure, Dee, or do you have time for maybe 2 or 3 more questions? No, you're good.
No, go for it. Yeah.
Thanks a million.
Yeah.
So, like, you mentioned there just about how young men or yeah, how, you know, you mentioned that you might not know what it is to be like a young man, but you have studied young men intently for your, especially when you're studying with Foucault, and you know, so I don't think that there is kind of overlooking that. But what I'm trying to get at is, when you looked at masculinity for that article on RTE Brainstorm, you were looking at how there are traits that we associate with masculinity that are positive, be it strength, bravery, respect, and discipline. What I was trying to look at, like obviously, I probably have an idea, but if these attributes are kind of linked to men, where do women fit into this outlook? Like, what should we associate with the feminine side, or what do you think is an idea of a strong woman?
Well, list those traits again that you said. What you said: strength, bravery,
respect, and discipline.
I know loads of strong, brave women. Do you know? So,
Yeah.
like, I think we've genderized these terms too far, to a stereotype.
Yeah.
And for some reason, it seems more acceptable for a woman to take on those traditional, I'm doing inverted commas, like masculine traits, but it seems unacceptable to an extent for men to portray what might be perceived as feminine traits, which might be empathy, which might be caring, kindness. I mean, what man doesn't want to be that? And yet, why is it feminized? Or what man, you know, what functioning person in society wouldn't want to have empathy and kindness? Maybe like the care one is huge. The care trait is very problematic, because this is why women have been left with the burden of the emotional load, because care has been outsourced to women historically. And yet women, so say historically, if we go back to the 1950s, 1960s, and the traditional household, women cared for the children, women cared for their relatives, women cared for their extended family. They did the care work. Okay, maybe that model worked, like to the point where we had legislation that the woman could not work if she was married, because the assumption was she was going to take on that role as the carer. Fast forward 50 years, we don't live in that society anymore. It's not even sustainable. Even if you wanted to, you can barely keep a roof over your head without two people going out and two incomes coming in. So unfortunately, women are stuck with the hangover of that care role, that they're still, and because they've seen it, they've probably seen their own parent, their own mother, you know, doing a lot of the domestic work, kind of the household work, the caring work. And the caring work it's huge. Like, if you think about, like, just what might seem small, but they're time consuming, of who's going to who's going to do like the child, or the interact with the school, who's going to manage the child when they go to school, who's going to have the relationship with the teacher, who's going to have to like make sure the homework's done. And very often a lot of that is put onto the female, but she's also working a full working day as well. So the statistics say women work an extra 20 hours a week than their male counterpart in caring functions. And it's almost like, but women are good at that. If I had somebody that I could hand that over to and tell them they were good at, I'd give it to them, you know, like I wasn't born with, you know, I wasn't born with the, obviously I have a humanity. I wouldn't let a child starve, or, you know, but men could learn that too.
Yeah.
And, like, imagine a dystopian world, or, you know, we can imagine anything now because we've lived through this pandemic, but can you imagine if women tomorrow all were struck by some disease and killed, you know, died, and it was just men left in the world? Okay, so imagine it was just men. And there's still babies and children that need to be cared for. Are the men going to stand back and go, don't know how to do this, we're not good at this, and let the child die?
A lot of, how do you do this, Joe? More calls to Joe Duffy, I can imagine, you know.
No, you can find a better role model, I'm sure. I have full faith that men would regroup and work out a way to raise those children in a caring way, care for them. But if I didn't, like, if you didn't have to, or if you kind of like can outsource it to somebody else, being very often the female in your relationship if you are in a heterosexual relationship. So I suppose, and I am conscious, I am kind of just imagining the heterosexual relationship with a family. That's kind of, because that's where I suppose that I can relate to it, but it is a huge problem in society, for our society in Ireland, that we haven't invested in care and childcare. And because we haven't, we think we don't know who's looking after the kids. So we've got extortionate childcare. But so there's a lot of kind of, we need to fix that. Okay. So we need to fix and respect care work. And I think, again, the pandemic has highlighted that, you know, all our brands and consumption goes out the window. When we're sick, what do we need? We need care. We need nurses. We need food. We go back to basics of what is actually important to us. And care has come out as a huge factor that, you know, nobody wants to see somebody left sick in this pandemic without having like care and support. Yeah. So is that a feminine thing? It shouldn't be, or why would it be? Like, it's a human thing.
Yeah, that captures what you've been explaining. You know, the idea that they're within the human being. Actually, I'm reminded of Jordan Peterson's new book that's out next month. I think one of his chapters is entitled "If you're married to a woman, don't make her the maid of the house." And I think that ties into what you're getting at there. Like, don't offload it just to the woman.
I'd say my only gripe with that, you need to rephrase that. If don't make her, he's assuming there is a patriarchal structure in the relationship to begin with. Don't make her the maid.
Perhaps, but anyway, I could be misquoting completely.
But it's true. Like, you know, how are you going to have a really healthy, happy, cool relationship if one person is overburdened and resentful? Like, it's not conducive to have a really interesting life together. You know, it might be easy to dodge a bullet and go, oh, I won't get involved in that. I'll keep my head down. I'll just work late. I won't, you know, that's messy over there. Kids are messy, you know. And again, I know I'm making the relationship, the idea of a family, but not every situation people end up with family. But that's when you really need to think about it, is when somebody, a little being, comes into the world that you need to keep alive. And it's much healthier if two people take that responsibility of keeping that little being alive, as opposed to offloading on one, because it's huge. Because, you know, how do you live yourself? You know, it's such a responsibility to keep this tiny little being, that everything, you've got all your hopes, dreams, everything, like this child is the next generation, and you have to, like, I found it completely overwhelming, the burden of, not the burden, but the responsibility of, this is my job now. But like, it's so much easier when two people help out to bring this little being up and give them a healthier perspective, like, of life, and show them that there's other ways of being a father, you know, than the old traditional model of fatherhood.
I think we are getting better at, though, generally, aren't people? Like, fathers are definitely more involved, more caring, and more open in their communication with their children, I think, than previous generations would have been.
Yeah, which is super fantastic, and better for, I would imagine, men's communication and interrelationship skills.
Yeah,
I would say, and for their relationships as well. Because, like, nothing worthwhile is easy. And I always think about that with kids. Kids are the hardest thing you'll ever do, like raising a child, but it's also the most rewarding. So it comes back to that. Anything you get easy, like, you know, you can consume something, you don't cherish it, you don't value it, but what you put hard work into, you get back, like, in droves.
Yeah, it does seem to change people, doesn't it? And I think everyone who has a child that I know has said that it has changed them for the better. Like, their life has took on a whole new meaning since they have this little thing, and like it changes who you are, changes the way you see the world, apparently. I haven't had one yet.
You haven't gone down, you know, you haven't gone down that road. No, like, it's true. And look, I think what's dangerous when people get a bit fluffy about it. You know, some people go, oh, it's wonderful, it's everything. It's hard work.
Yeah.
Are you up for it? Like, are you up for hard work? Because that's what kids are.
And I think at the root of that hard work, Dan, what you've said earlier, your focus is building into emotional intelligence and self-awareness. So what, maybe they're not totally connected. Maybe I'm only just gluing those together for the sake of it. But what I'm trying to, they're two key attributes that you are keen on. I suppose that's the outlook of your podcast. So what simple ways do you try to expand self-awareness? Like what do you think people can do to improve self-awareness?
Good. On a day-to-day level, well, for me, I think I've learning, so upskilling, training. So I came across a very good friend of mine introduced me to choice theory psychology, and I'm into my second year now of studying it, and a lot of it's very practical because it's a training course, and you learn by doing, so by writing, by observing, by kind of going through the process, and that helps with and something I really am an advocate for, journaling and writing down what's happening as you experience it, because it gives you time to reflect on an event that's happened, and it can be the most mundane event ever, and then suddenly you go in, like as you start writing, you go into depths of thinking, connections, and understanding at a better level. So you come to understand yourself, of like, and particularly then if you look back over a few weeks and you go, oh, I had this exact same conversation, or I had this exact same row, or I had this exact same dynamic before, and I haven't learned from it. Here I am again. So it helps you to build that self-awareness by writing things down. And because we're terrible, we don't recognize our patterns, but we're playing our patterns continuously without trying to adjust them. So if we don't adjust our patterns and our behaviors, nothing's going to change. So I think through studying choice theory and having that opportunity to just stop and think, reflect. And I do a lot of this with the students. I've introduced a lot of encouraging them to reflect. Look, it's not as much fun when it's in an academic sense. So, but I would love if they were to carry it on in terms of that reflective writing and journaling. You know, the likes of Pat Dibley does great courses on that. So like if anybody even just went on and did like a month's course with Pat in terms of just getting that habit of writing, that builds self-awareness, like to stop it, like, and these things don't cost that much to invest in yourself, to understand yourself a bit. So as you come to understand yourself a bit more, you become more self-aware, and that self-awareness, it's kind of when we're talking about emotional intelligence, you know, when the plane is going down, it tells you to put your air mask on first before you put on the child. And at first your instinct is like, oh no, you have to protect the child, but you're no use to anyone unless you've done the work on yourself first. And then you can be a better person, whether it's in a relationship or a parent or a leader or an educator or whatever. You'll be better once you've done the work on yourself first. That's been my experience, and that's like, I found that to be true. So yeah, that's kind of, for building self-awareness, that would be one to kind of work on. Even just that writing, something we can all just do today.
Yeah.
Pen and paper.
Brilliant. Dee, we have this thing on Paper Tuesdays. It's called Flash Flood. I don't know. You might have a thesis in examining this gentleman. Let's have a look and see what Flash Flood has to say.
Right, fellas, the time has come. I think we need to get a smart person, a real techie internet person in with us, right? Robbie, you might be the man, maybe. But we're going to create a social network where you can't say bad things about people. And if you have an opinion, you have to back it up with facts. You see poor James McLean and Tony Marshall and Marcus Rashford getting abused, racially abused. One man abused for taking a stand, which I think he's dead right to take, and the whole Poppy argument, that's another podcast on its own. But we're going to make a social network for smart people. It's going to be online. You can't, if you say something, you need to have hard evidence to back it up. So if I say, Michael, you're a bollocks. I'm going to be able to stand up and say you're a bollocks because X, Y, and Z, and we need more of that. And that's not an insult. That's just a fact of life.
Smart book. I think that could
Smart
take
book.
off. So no. Sorry?
That's just something you add. I don't need to comment on that, do I?
Oh, well, if you have comments on Flash Flood, sometimes we're just bowled over and we just lie like deluge in a river and listen to that. But
If you'd like to sign up for Smart Book.
Well, I liked what they said. They need to back things up with fact. I'd agree with whoever that is there.
Yeah, that's Flash Flood, that's James. So sometimes he picks, last week it was me because I used the word oatmeal instead of porridge, but other times it's Dubliners. He just has a thing for Dub. Sorry, Dee. And sometimes any nationality, really. So it affects our international audience, but look, we're keeping a straight face and we're doing our best. Dee, I have loved this conversation. I knew I was going to love it, and you took us everywhere. And I know, of course, I knew there was one thing I wanted to do. So for the last 48 hours, folks, on Paper Tuesdays, I have binged on 8 episodes of Journeying, and I can highly recommend the podcast. It is incredible. We've Pat Divley, you've Teresa Fitzgibbon, you've your man Ennis, he was excellent.
Thomas Ennis, yeah.
Thomas Ennis, you will find something new, and Jerry Nelson, the documenter. This podcast, folks, it's you've only started it a few months ago, Dee. You're on to a winner. It's just fantastic. I highly recommend it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
You've enjoyed the podcast experience, I take it, Dee, yeah?
Yeah.
Paper Tuesday, I meant Journeying, yeah. So
no, the whole, it's cool. It's a cool medium, and particularly when you're somebody who likes research and learning new things, like it's just cool to actually get to chat to people and go deep diving into stuff that you're interested in.
Yeah, to be honest, after listening to the podcast, I didn't expect you to be such a talkative person, you know? Because you really take a back seat in the interview, and you tie in, even with Jerry Redmond, you were very good at just showing him his strengths and guiding him along. It was a beautiful podcast. So, like, that's a strength, I suppose.
Learning when to shut up and when to speak.
Yeah, well, I definitely need to learn it, but yeah.
No, yeah, just thank you. I take that on board, and thank you very much.